You have probably heard the terms global warming and climate change being used quite often, and in this explanation we are going to look at what the actual difference between the two is, what causes them, and what their potential consequences might be for life on Earth. Covering the planet like a thin blanket is the atmosphere, a protective layer of gases that surrounds the entire globe and is essential for life. One of its most important functions is that it acts like an insulating greenhouse, regulating the amount of heat energy from the sun that stays trapped near the surface of the planet. This balance of heat allows the Earth to maintain a relatively stable and comfortable temperature that supports life. To understand how critical the atmosphere is, we can compare the Earth with the Moon. Although both celestial bodies are roughly the same distance from the Sun, the Moon has no atmosphere. As a result, temperatures on the Moon swing drastically from extreme heat, reaching over 100 degrees Celsius on the sunlit side, to extreme cold, dropping to around minus 200 degrees Celsius on the dark side. This is because there is nothing on the Moon to trap the heat. On Earth, when sunlight reaches the surface, some of the sun's energy is absorbed by the ground and heats it up, but a large portion is reflected back towards space as infrared radiation. However, as this radiation travels upward, it encounters particles of gas in the atmosphere. These gas particles absorb the energy and then, after a brief delay, release it again in all directions. This redirection means that some of the energy goes back out toward space, but a significant portion gets redirected back down toward Earth, trapping heat close to the surface. This process continues again and again, with the energy being absorbed and re-emitted many times before it eventually escapes into space. This cycle allows heat to linger longer near the surface, keeping the planet warmer than it otherwise would be. This heat-trapping phenomenon is called the greenhouse effect, and the gases that perform this function, including carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor, are called greenhouse gases. Although the greenhouse effect is completely natural and necessary to sustain life on Earth, the problem arises when human activities significantly increase the concentration of these greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, making the greenhouse effect too strong. Over the past few centuries, especially since the Industrial Revolution, humans have been burning vast quantities of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas, which releases enormous amounts of carbon dioxide. Similarly, activities like cattle farming and landfill use produce large amounts of methane. As the levels of these gases continue to rise, the greenhouse effect becomes more intense, causing the planet to heat up in a process known as global warming. Over the last 100 years alone, the Earth's average temperature has increased by nearly 1 whole degree Celsius, and it is projected to rise much more unless drastic measures are taken to curb emissions and reduce human impact on the climate. Now, let's look at the difference between global warming and climate change. Global warming refers specifically to the increase in the Earth's average temperature due to the enhanced greenhouse effect. On the other hand, climate change is a broader term that refers to the long-term changes in weather patterns that result from this warming. For instance, extreme weather events such as droughts, hurricanes, heat waves, and floods are expected to become not only more frequent, but also more intense as a result of climate change. Another major consequence of global warming is the rising of sea levels. This rise happens for two key reasons. First, higher temperatures cause ice caps and glaciers to melt more rapidly, which increases the volume of water flowing into the oceans. Second, as water heats up, it expands, a process known as thermal expansion. These two factors combined contribute to a noticeable rise in sea levels globally. This can lead to seasonal flooding in many parts of the world, and in some extreme cases, it may result in the complete submersion of small islands and low-lying coastal cities and towns. Climate change also has widespread effects on ecosystems and species all around the world. As global temperatures and rainfall patterns shift, many species that were perfectly adapted to their original environments may struggle to survive. Some organisms might manage to adapt to the new climate conditions over time, or migrate to areas that are still suitable, such as moving closer to the polar regions where it is cooler. In fact, Many species are already showing these patterns, gradually shifting their habitats toward the North or South Pole in search of more favorable conditions. However, a significant number of species do not have the ability to migrate fast enough or adapt quickly enough to keep up with these rapid changes. As a result, global biodiversity is likely to suffer a dramatic decline within the coming few decades unless strong and effective action is taken to address the root causes of climate change and protect ecosystems from further damage. The survival of countless species, including our own, depends on how we respond to this growing crisis.